Welcome to the Call Your Shot podcast, your weekly sports recap podcast where we break down the hottest headlines, dissect the latest injuries, and serve up our own hard-hitting analysis of the past week in sports. But that's not all. We're not just here to talk about the past, we're here to predict the future as well. On the Call Your Shot podcast, we boldly predict the outcomes of the upcoming week's games.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for listening. This is the Call Your Shot podcast with your hosts, Alix Harris and Drew Moore. It's been a bit, it's been a while, but we're back and we have a lot to get into, so we're going to get right into it. We're going to go over some injuries, some trade news, and blockbuster trades that we've had over the past couple of days, as well as kind of going over division by division and kind of seeing what the rankings have been like and kind of how that kind of boils up to what the beginning of our season rankings were and what our expectations are going forward. So getting into some injuries, some things that have happened over the past few weeks that we weren't able to touch on ahead of time, where majorly the Rashee Rice injury ended up, was it like LCL? It ended up being like an LCL surgery he had, but the ACL and PCL were still attached.
I thought it was also a meniscus repair is what I believe it was as well. And if it was that as well, then he's not going to be coming back this season, and that was one of the potential outlooks on this injury, is that it could be a season ender for them. Him being way more productive over the past season or over this season than Olave has been is kind of wild, because going into the season it was like, okay, yeah, Rashid Shaheed, yeah, okay, cool, whatever, but Olave though, like Olave, bro. And then yep. But yeah, and so with him being, arguably the best receiver on the team right now, and then you also have Olave that's going to be out this next game against the Broncos. It's and Carr's out as well. Like their Ruiz is out too. Their offensive lineman, like they're playing with scraps out there. So it's going to be, and Taysom Hill, for what that's worth as well, he's also going to be out. So it's literally Kamara against the world right now. So.
Especially if the Saints started so hot and now they've lost the last 3 or 4 in a row, so they kind of are who we thought they were, or maybe it's just the injuries. But
and I will if we kind of go back and look at some of their opponents, like it seems that they were beaten now don't look all that great of wins and stuff. And
facts.
Especially that Cowboys victory, where it was like, whoa, man, like look at that, like the Cowboys defense looks top tier. Then they gave up a 40 piece last week, and I believe they've given up, was it like 40 it's like something crazy, like 40 points in the last 3 home games or something like that. But yeah, so it's I think the Saints, while they did start off super hot and everything, maybe it's the injuries, maybe it's the opponents. It's probably, as it always is, a combination of both of those factors as well. And I mean, I don't want to say that I told you so, but this is my Saints team right here. This is hell yeah.
Shedeur Sanders, here we come.
Absolutely. That's what I'm looking forward to right now. I don't want to see these victories out here. I don't want to see all this quote unquote success. Like, what is that? What are we doing? No. Like, but moral of the story is, going forward, Rashid Shaheed is probably going to be out for the season. And that's going to be a major blow to whichever quarterback is out there for the team, because that's where they're getting the majority of their points, was off of these bomb touchdowns.
The deep threat.
Yeah.
So, going off to the main Rashid that I meant to talk about was Rashee Rice, who ended up having the major injury for the Chiefs. I'm not sure if we touched on that last time we recorded, but that was the main Rashid I was talking about. So he ended up having his surgery, which kind of repaired his LCL, and I guess ended up repairing part of his hamstring, I guess, as well. So he's supposed to be out for the next 4 to 6 months. Ended up being season-ending surgery. I think it was ended up being a pick that Patrick Mahomes threw, and then it was just kind of like a scramble thing. And then basically Mahomes ended up running right into his knee. And so he was having a major season for them. The first few weeks of the season, he was the clear number one over Travis Kelce and everybody else. And now they're kind of without him going forward. And now they've, Travis Kelce's kind of come back to life, and the scraps of Juju and Kareem Hunt and all them stuff. So the Chiefs are still finding a way, but Rashee Rice, definitely a major injury for them. So thoughts on that injury, and do you feel like it'll affect the Chiefs going forward? They're still undefeated, so.
And that's the wild thing too. It's like, no matter who you take away on this team, like
Don't matter.
they're like a phoenix from the ashes. Like they just keep on rising up again and just winning and winning and winning. It's all they know how to do, and it's all they'll continue to do, because the back half of their schedule is actually lightens up quite a bit, to where they were supposed to, like, the first couple games, it was like, okay, we'll see how they do, and how it kind of shakes down and where they'll be at going into this late schedule. But now it's like, oh well, like like who else? I mean, obviously they're probably gonna not gonna go undefeated, right? But at
Maybe.
the same time, like I do like San Francisco this week, for put that out there. But but after that, it's Vegas, Tampa Bay, it's Denver. Okay, Buffalo maybe now, since they have Amari Cooper. We'll see how that goes for them. But then it's Carolina, Las Vegas, the Chargers, Cleveland, then Houston. Okay, and then Pittsburgh, Denver. So I mean, realistically, like, let's see, 1, 2, maybe 3 losses coming up here. Like, so
yeah, definitely already passed the toughest part of their schedule. Ravens, Bengals, Falcons,
Saints.
Saints.
The Saints out there. But yeah, no, with I think it was kind of crazy too with Reishi, that they're like, well, he might not be out for the whole season. There might still
give
be
it a
out
couple
there.
weeks.
I'm like, dude, like, what are you talking about? Like, that thing is gone.
So what were they waiting for, do you feel like? Like, they kept saying, like, oh, it might be a week or so until they, like, reevaluate. Were they waiting for, like, swelling to go down to get a full evaluation? Or you think they were just kind of, like, dragging their feet, trying to prolong the inevitable?
I honestly I could not tell you, because it's one thing to, okay, maybe it was an inconclusive test that they did, then they're on the field because, the hamstrings are a little bit overactive in guarding. So you're not going to have that much of an accurate test if you're doing like a Lockman's or anterior drawer or whatever. But then that's where you have the swelling calm down, and then you have them do an MRI, and then you can literally see, like, okay, is the ACL there or is it not there? Like, and it's pretty quick, like, and so I'm not sure why, they weren't just going straight ahead for it. That, because there's some reports out there saying that it wasn't the ACL. Other reports are saying that it was the ACL.
They said they repaired the LCL, and the MCL, ACL, and meniscus were not part of the procedure.
Interesting. Very sure. So I mean, maybe that's why then. Like, they were doing that, like, that second opinion, because the first opinion that they had, they were like, we fear that he has ACL tear. But yeah, I'm seeing this quote here. It says, Reishi, his surgery was not his ACL, it was PCL. Actually, sorry, posterior lateral corner, which is, meniscus. And there was damage to, okay, yeah. So basically, it wasn't the ACL, it was more so the posterior lateral corner, which could have been, like you said, the LCL as well too, and maybe a little bit of the meniscus. So, as far as that goes, like, it's a lot better of a prognosis than ACL, but at the same time, obviously, gonna be gone for the season. So, yeah.
Thanks. Additionally, one of the other major receivers that we did see fall to injury was Nico Collins, who was arguably the best wide receiver in the league. In the first 5 weeks, was averaging like 110 yards per game, nearly a touchdown. It was basically just like the number one target for CJ Stroud. Ended up having a hamstring strain. I believe he was placed on IR, so he'll
Mm-hmm.
be out for the next, I think, 2 or 3 weeks now going forward. And Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell gonna have to step up in that regards. But Nico was killing it, honestly.
Yeah, and I mean it's we might be able to see the revival of Tank Dell too, which is nice because he's kind of been a no show this whole season, but yeah, Nico is a major part of this offense, and we're gonna see we're gonna see how that's gonna affect them going forward. I don't think that it's going to be too drastic, but most of the time, whenever it comes to like the betting line, wide receivers and other skill positions don't really affect the line all that much. Maybe like a half point to a point. Like if it's uh, like like if it's somebody significant, like I don't know, Randy Moss or something like that gets injured. Okay, maybe
Me.
a point. Okay, obviously not you, but anyways, um, but in terms of like how they've schemed all of their plays based around him,
Mhm.
we'll maybe he is worth a point in terms of like how that impacts the types of plays that they can run, because Stephon Diggs, as much as I love him, he's always open. He can run routes around anybody and everybody. He's not Nico Collins. He doesn't have the same size as him. Um, Tank Dell, love him too, but again, not the same size player by a long shot. So it's going to be interesting to see, um, who's going to step into that role and kind of help carry them through some of the the back half of the schedule there.
Nice. So those were the major ones. You can just kind of bullet point these next ones if you want to stop anywhere. We already kind of touched on Derek Carr. He's already missed the last game. He's doubtful for tomorrow for Thursday Night Football. You have your boy Cooper Kupp, who returned to practice today, as well as Nick Chubb, who ended up logging a full practice coming off of the ACL injury that he had last season. Evan Ingram ended up returning, and yeah, I think those were the major injuries. Did you have any thoughts or notes on them? James Cook as well missed last game as well. I think it was a toe injury. They're saying that he should probably be okay going forward, but I think those were the main ones.
Um, no, yeah, not really much on those guys. I mean, I feel bad for for Nick Chubb, because like
Yes.
it's like they're not going to be able to throw the ball, so they're just going to stack the the hell out of the box and like just
All
say
right, Nick Chubb, here's 30 touches.
like what, like welcome back. So
Good luck.
um, and that's the crazy thing too. It's like they're not, hopefully if they're hopefully they're smart enough to just not give him all of these like ridiculous carries just all at once. Maybe they'll slowly ease him in and everything, or maybe they'll just give him 30 carries and then run him into the ground, and then have another situation where it's like Deshaun Watson 2.0. You paid the man and now he has uh no nothing to play for, because his body's broken. So,
Facts.
and with that too, it's like, um, they were supposed to have a pretty solid offensive line, right? Um,
Mhm.
but in actuality, they have one of the worst offensive lines that are out there.
Yeah.
So I don't, I don't know, man. I don't know what to tell you about that team. Um,
Yeah.
they the one player that they have that has
Hmm.
a half decent chance of doing any kind of blocking is Wyatt Teller. He has a PFF grade of 75 when it comes to run blocking. Um, but other than that, that's it. That's it. So
Facts. Yeah, Browns are really starting to clean up shop at this point as well too. So that transitions us into the Amari Cooper trade that ended up having yesterday, a couple days ago.
Mm-hmm.
So the Cleveland Browns ended up trading Amari Cooper to the Bills for a third-round pick and a seventh-round pick. So the Bills kind of pick up a big key weapon and kind of like a number one wide receiver, as they obviously lost Stephon Diggs last season and kind of were having like Khalil Shakir be like the number one go-to guy, or Dalton Kincaid and stuff. So now you have Amari Cooper, who could be a go-to number one, who I kind of felt bad for, because there's been a lot of like talk about, like, I guess you could say like his effort and stuff over the past couple of seasons. But like if I'm playing for Deshaun Watson, he's throwing me the ball, I don't think I'd be too happy in Cleveland anyway. So yeah, so now you have Josh Allen. They just came off the win with the Jets, so I guess we'll get a little into as well with the Devante Adams trade. But how do you feel that that helps the Bills, who are now 4-2 with the addition of Amari Cooper? And do you feel like this makes them contenders in the AFC if they weren't already?
I mean, yeah, obviously it moves the dial for them, especially like Khalil Shakir, like he
He's the
ain't
goat.
he ain't it. Coleman, he ain't it either. And
Too young.
yeah, and there's been like a lot of locker room stuff with him as well, showing up late to practices and all that stuff too. So,
He got
um,
benched for a half.
yeah, exactly. Um, and so it's like yeah, it's gonna make a difference. And we saw, Amari Cooper, he can be a dominant wide receiver out there when given the opportunity. And that's the thing, when given the opportunity. Because
Catchable targets.
literally, I think it was like he what is it? It's like, so he, of the catchable targets that he has, um or no, so of the targets that he has like one of the highest target shares of any team, or of any player in the league right now.
Hmm.
Um, but then of those targets, only 50% of them are catchable, and but they still count against him. So now his receiving percentage is 48%, which looks like dog water, right? But
Yeah,
50% of the
and his
targets
fault.
aren't catchable. And that's literally within I think it's like within a 5 foot kind of radius is what it is. So that can just tell you alone how bad Deshaun Watson has been. But
Hmm.
I don't want to go down that rabbit hole of how bad he is. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely think it'll help him going forward. They definitely kind of gives that Josh Allen number one. We talked about Josh Allen in the past too, about how he's like kind of spread out the ball. We even talked about like Dalton Kincaid possibly taking a step forward this season, who's obviously still a great tight end, but kind of just isn't that like number one go to target like a Travis Kelce in his prime or anything like that. So I think Amari Cooper definitely will help them take a little bit more pressure off of Josh and open up the running game for them a little bit more. Even though running game's been pretty good, we talked about James Cook kind of battling through some injuries, but Ray Davis has looked good and stuff for them. So I think it's just going to open up the offense for them a little more. And their defense, who hasn't been terrible, it's been middle of the pack. So I think that'll help them improve. Following off of that, we do have Devante Adams, who additionally was traded. So it was weird because the Jets and the Bills played each other on Monday Night Football, and then the next day on Tuesday it comes out, but both of them traded for these wide receiver ones. So the
Hmm.
Jets ended up trading for Devante Adams from obviously the Raiders. I think it ended up being a third round pick, which is a conditional. So like if the Jets make like the AFC Championship, or if like Devante makes like a Pro Bowl or All Pro, then it like turns into a second round pick or something like that. But
Hmm.
kind of knew that Devontae was unhappy, and then the hamstring injury comes up with the past 3 weeks. I don't think he was hurt, because they're saying that he's probably going to be a full go for this weekend. But yeah, so it gives Aaron Rodgers some more help. The Jets honestly looked pretty good against the Bills. I'm not going to lie. They weren't able to capitalize a lot on some of those kind of like red zone drives, but and with the wind and the field goals and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, I feel like that they look
All the
decent. So
penalties
if
and
you add
stuff.
Devonte Adams and he replaces like a Mike Williams, who's kind of been dog water for them, I
Hmm.
think that's going to be a disgusting form of offense. It looked good on paper. Garrett Wilson, Devonte Adams, Brees Hall. I mean, shoot,
Yeah.
they're 2-4 though. I
Yeah.
don't know if they're making the playoffs still.
And I mean, and that's the thing too, is like, again, with playing the schedule game, um, the beginning of the season, I wouldn't say that it was stacked, but it had some pretty formidable opponents there. You start out the season right out the bat with the Super Bowl Super Bowl runner up. So L right there. But then it lightens up a little bit. Play against Tennessee, play against New England.
They beat the trash, and
and
they
then
lost
they
to everybody else.
lost to Denver. But
That was bad.
Minnesota, they're undefeated. It's a solid
And they
team.
were in that game too. They had a chance to win that.
And another thing too that's also changed over time as well is the types of plays that they're running and the amount that they're letting Aaron Rodgers cook, so to speak. Because in the beginning of the season, he wasn't really throwing the ball. They were more so focusing on the run, and that's kind of like what we talked about. That was going to be their identity going in, and we were
Go
like,
through Brees.
exactly. But then, they were like, yeah, no, this ain't working, and I'm sure that Aaron Rodgers, had something to do with that. And because ultimately, after was it week 3 or so, that's when they started to have Mr. Rogers start airing it out a little bit more and have him throwing about like 35 times and up per game. So that's more so of the game plan that's going to end up winning them games, as opposed to trying to run this offense where it's clearly not working most of the time. And then when it does work, then that's when they can end up running some play action pass. But thankfully now Nathaniel Hackett is also not calling the plays, so hopefully that'll also change for them as well, because he was never good at anything that he did, quite frankly. But yeah,
I mean, yeah. I feel like he's just there because of Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is like judge, jury, and executioner, I feel like, at this point, because like you said, they originally like, okay, running the ball through Brees, that's going to be our identity. And then you have like a formidable quarterback in the backfield that can actually make the throws on these play actions and stuff, as opposed to having Zach Wilson. But then, you start this transition starting week 3 and week 4, trying to air it out more. And then Robert Saleh gets fired. And then they move Nathaniel Hackett from not calling plays. And then they bring in Devante and all that kind of stuff. So I feel like it's just kind of like a circus going on there. And it was a little fun fact for you. So like the Jets through 6 weeks last year were 3-3 and they scored 113 points. This year they're 2-4 and they scored 113 points. So it's like the defense is still doing their job. The defense is still elite, but the quarterback play has not. This quarterback play has not good. The quarterback. They were the number 2 ranked defense going into the Bills game.
And that's the interesting thing too. Because like I'm not sure that I'm not completely sold on the Jets in terms of their defense.
Their defense, or
yeah.
What do you want? What more do you want from them, bro?
I mean, again, if we play the schedule game and see, the teams that they did play, and looking at they're holding the opponents to X, Y, and Z amount of points throughout the year. But at the same time,
average 20 points a game.
Okay, and they also played against the Broncos. We know how good the Broncos are. They held
played against the 49ers, the Vikings, the Bills.
They played against the Patriots. We know how good the Patriots are. When they played against the 49ers, they also played against them without Christian McCaffrey as well too, and they still gave up 32 points. And then they gave up 17 points to Will Levis and almost lost that game. We know how good Will Levis is as a quarterback.
The GOAT.
Okay. Sure, they did pretty well in terms of holding the Vikings, only 23 points, but at the same time it's still 23 points. And then the Bills, they were missing a bunch of guys on the O-line, and then also
no James.
No James Cook either, or I believe Khalil Shakir was out as well. So like
he played, he was just in limited.
Okay. So I'm not completely sold on it, and I think it's one of those things too where you're playing your ass off all these games and stuff, and the offense isn't coming to the party.
And they've scored more than 20 points once this season,
and so that's where it's like, okay, I think that they're starting to decline a little bit and they're starting to lose faith. But now with Devante Adams coming in, it gives the whole team another boost, and maybe it can help improve some of that morale, because they were talking about how they were starting to lose the locker room going forward as well too. So hopefully this can turn it around for them, but only time will tell.
Facts. So that's the major news that we have. So we're kind of going to pivot into going over some of these divisions, kind of going over some major notes, what the current standings are, and then maybe touch on a few of the teams that we have going forward as contenders. So I guess since we've been talking about the AFC East, we can just touch on that real quick. Obviously, the Buffalo Bills are leading the division at 4-2, followed by the Miami Dolphins, who are just trying to keep their head above water, who are sitting at 2-3 until Tua comes back. Who it's been reported that he is going to come back after IR. So I think they're on. Are they on bye right now? Or they only have like 1 or 2 more weeks until Tua does return?
Yeah, they just
So
got
they're
off
sitting
bye
at
and stuff.
Gotcha. So I think they have at least one more game without Tua. So and then the Jets now are 2-4, even though they kind of have a revamped offense, I guess you could say, with Devante Adams. And then the Patriots obviously are 1-5, one of the worst teams in the league. So I think both of us did have. I don't know if you had I had the Bills, but I think like it's kind of shaping up the way I thought. I mean, obviously, I didn't think that the Dolphins would be this bad because we didn't expect Tua to be hurt. But I did kind of have higher expectations for the Jets because I thought their offense was going to be a little bit improved compared to Zach Wilson. But I was wrong about that. But other than that, I mean, it's kind of so far it's about what we predicted.
Yeah. Yeah, right now in my in my ratings, I have the Dolphins currently sitting at a nice, pretty 29th in my rankings, based on all
Yeah,
the games that they've played so far, and obviously,
that's
without.
bad.
I mean, we've seen what
I
it looks
mean,
like without him
well,
out
I'm saying
there.
I feel like the Dolphins should have done their due diligence. You see how like teams like even like the Panthers with Andy Dalton, how they look like a formidable offense, or like Joe
Mm-hmm.
Flacco with the Colts, and how like these backups that are actually like in they're like $3 million contracts and stuff like that. I don't remember.
Legit,
I don't even want to talk about Skyler or all the what's been going on there, but it's been bad. It's
legit.
been bad, and yeah,
And it was also bad timing too with the injuries with Achan and stuff like that too, and Mostert, and then so it's one of those things where uh in time, in theory, it'll get better, but we
you sound like a
as much
Dolphins
as
fan. It's
you
man,
know
shit right there.
I for Tua's sake, I hope that he's able to play football again, but for
Mm-hmm.
his family's sake, I hope that he doesn't play because like I want to see him, out there doing commercials, doing whatever, be coaching a team or whatever, something like that. I don't want to see him, risking his life in one of these situations where it can be, life threatening. So
It's so unfortunate too because we've talked about it in the past. It's like obviously it's his decision and what he wants to do, but the fact that like even a couple seasons ago when he was having all of those concussions and problems and everybody was like talking about retirement, and then you go a whole entire season last year and he doesn't have any injuries, but then it just happens so quickly and it happens just like that, and then it obviously looks terrible. So like I kind of am with you. Like I hope the best for him and I hope he is healthy if he does want to play, but like I feel like it's again that's a situation that I wouldn't want him to put his family or his future in, just because of football. I mean, like he's already going to be financially secure, but they've already talked about him coming off IR and going to play. So, I mean, I guess we could just hope for the best when it comes to that situation. So, moving on to the AFC North, we have Baltimore, who after their loss to the Chiefs have really turned it around and are 4-1 since. So they're sitting at the top of the division at 4-2. Lamar and Derrick Henry are both MVP candidates, and a lot of people thought that Derrick Henry would take a step back this season, including myself. And he's just like, nah, I'm gonna lead the league in rushing, lead the league in touchdowns, lead the league in big yard plays, like just doing Derrick Henry things. So it's been great for Baltimore. Pittsburgh, surprisingly, I feel like is one of the surprises of the NFL, sitting at 4-2 with Justin Fields. Report came out that this week, though, that Russell Wilson is taking the first team reps. So they're transitioning, I guess, away from Justin Fields. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I mean, real quick though, do you feel like that was worth it? I mean, Justin Fields hasn't been playing great, but I mean, at the end of the day, he's not losing in these games, and he's sitting at 4-2. So, do you feel like you would have made that move to Russ even if he is healthy? Oh, I can't hear you.
There we go. I'll pause my mic there
There
for
we
a
go.
second. He's Mr. Unlimited.
It's
So
unlimited.
in theory, he should be better, right? Um, and will he be? Who knows? He hasn't
I mean,
really.
he's a better passer,
I mean,
but I mean,
passing
Justin
wise,
Fields is
yeah,
a little bit
for
more
sure.
versatile.
Well, and that's the thing too. It's like it was kind of funny because Mike Tomlin was talking about how how Russ is a little bit less mobile than Justin, which makes sense. But at the same time,
Yeah,
they're also their offensive line isn't at all what it used to be. They're giving up pressures left and right, and that's one of the reasons why you know Fields is getting out of the pocket so much, is because the pocket's just collapsing, and he doesn't really have a chance to do anything except for get out of the pocket and throw, which I should say, which before was Russ's specialty, right? He'd get out of the pocket, make something
backyard
happen.
football.
Yeah, exactly. That was his thing. But now,
Mhm.
my guy's getting a little up there in age, and so a little bit less mobile, but he's still Russell Wilson, and I think that he'll be able to. I want to say give the team a spark, but he'll be able to um, improve the offense in a way that will allow them to not only just have a running game where they can hand the ball to Najee for 800 million times and then hope that he does something good, which he finally did. Um, but I think that it'll also open up the passing game for Pickens, and maybe even Fryermuth as
Mhm.
well too. The only problem
The
with
Muth.
that, yeah, the Muth is Luth. The only problem with that is that Russ doesn't really target the middle of the field. He more so throws towards the boundary, um, which could be a problem because a lot of the routes that the majority of their players run, except for Pickens, is over
Mhm.
the middle, and that's where a lot of teams leave the field open, is over the middle. So I'm, it's curious to me that they would make this transition after Fields is still, he's not losing them games, like they're still 4-2 after all,
Mhm.
but at the same time, like,
He ain't winning them.
yeah, exactly. So and along with that too, one last thing, the Steelers have a pass blocking grade of 60.7, which is currently ranked 24th in the league. So we'll see how that goes for them.
Yeah, so it is a good chance that Russell Wilson does end up starting for them, and we'll see how it goes going forward with that. The Bengals, who are sitting third in the division, are currently sitting at 2-4, and they're really facing an uphill battle because they ended up going 1-4 the week prior. Ended up winning this week against the Giants, but now they're sitting third in the division and now kind of have this huge uphill climb in order to try to get back into playoff contention. And it hasn't necessarily been because of their offense. I feel like their defense has really been letting them down because like against the Commanders, who again I think have been one of the other teams. We'll get into them later that have been like kind of the surprise of the league. Ended up giving 38 points up to them. Then they played the Ravens, ended up losing them to overtime. And Joe Burrow is playing phenomenal football. Actually, probably would be MVP candidate if they had a winning record. But they're giving up 41 points. They're giving up 38 points, and their defense isn't really able to stop anybody. Obviously, they were able to hold the Giants to 7 points last week, but it's the Giants, and they didn't have Malik Neighbors as he was dealing with this concussion situation. But, I mean, do you have any hope for the Bengals going forward? Their next game is against the Browns, but then they play the Eagles, Raiders, and then they play the Ravens. So, I mean, there's a chance you can go on a little streak, but, I mean, that's still just a huge uphill climb.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not looking good for sure, but there is a silver lining out there to where um they always start slow, right? And we know that, but at the same
Not
time,
1-4.
okay, well, I mean,
That's
slowness.
molasses.
Okay. um but the big thing too is like they just on third down, man, like they just can't convert at all. Like I don't know, and I don't know what it is about it, but they're one of the worst teams in the league when it comes to third down conversions over expected. and as well as EPA per play on third down as well too. Like it, I I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the solution is to that. Maybe it's calling a little bit better, a better scheme on first and second down, getting them in position to have a like third and short. Um, but at the same time, with without much of a running game, this is kind of what happens. You're not able to move the
Mm,
ball as well. You have to rely on Joe Burrow, which he does his thing, but at the same
mm-hmm.
time, you know can be prone to a couple errors here and there, which can be costly. And especially if the defensive side is going to hold up their end of the bargain, then they're going to
They
have
ain't doing
to.
nothing.
Exactly. So, and I mean, sure, yeah, they looked great this past week against
I mean,
against
I
the
mean,
Giants, and who didn't have Malik
uh,
Neighbors, who
a,
didn't have
yeah, a
Devin
hurt
Singletary.
Giants team.
So like, yeah. So that's my point there is like their
Yeah.
defense looked improved. Okay, they had a players only meeting, but also it was against the Giants. So we'll see
Yeah.
when they play against some actual competition what they can do.
Yeah, well, you talked about when it comes to the conversion rate for third downs, but I mean their offense, like you said, has overall been great. You have Jamar Chase, you have T Higgins now, and then you have Yoshivas, who's been like a great rookie for them. The running game has not been that great. Talked about Zach Moss is kind of losing his job to Chase Brown because they're trying to see if he's a kind of a younger, more explosive back and see if they can give them a spark. But their defense has really been letting them down. So
Drop them.
something that they really need to improve, improve going forward. So we'll see when it comes to the Bengals. And then, as we've talked about a little bit earlier, unfortunately, the Browns are the Browns, and Deshaun Watson is sitting at 1-5, one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. And
One of the worst quarterbacks
fans
ever.
still talked about how this is our quarterback, and they feel that Deshaun Watson gives them the best chance to win. Bullshit. but but it's been absolutely abysmal. And then, like you talked about, now Amari Cooper has been traded. David Njoku's been in and out of the lineup with injuries and things of that nature. So now it's basically, I don't know, Jerry Jeudy to the moon or something. Like, I don't know, Nick Chubb to the moon. Like, I don't even know what the Browns are going to do at this point. And like I said, they can't really eat any of the contract for at least another year, and they're kind of stuck. So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe they're just now just going to tank and just try to get a high draft pick and then try to eat the contract next year. I don't know.
Do you know what's crazy? Deshaun Watson makes $2.5 million per week. Per week.
Light work.
And he has a success rate of 33% on offense. Do you know how bad you have to be? He is 6%, technically, we'll get technically here, about 5-ish% away from the next person in terms of success rate this season, only to Bo Nix. The next person is Will Levis. Will Levis is 7% higher than in terms of success rate for quarterbacks this season. Like that is yikes.
Yeah, it's bad. I don't even think that they deserve to be talked about anymore. So that's the Browns. They're trash.
Actually, I'm not even gonna. I'm not even gonna. No.
Moving on to a very good team. The AFC South, starting with Houston, they're sitting at 5-1. We talked about it with Nico Collins and stuff, but they've been a great team. The defense has stepped up. Will Anderson has kind of really come on of late. I think this is like his third season. The defense has looked good. The offense has looked great. And now Joe Mixon is hopefully back and he's healthy and stuff. And he's obviously just a great back. I know you don't like Joe Mixon, but it's a good back for
my
them.
fantasy team, bro. Like he's.
I don't want to hear it.
I thought I'd give it the old college try.
Yeah. CJ Stroud probably would be considered an MVP candidate, probably in the top 5 to 7. So the Texans have looked great. Followed up by the Colts, who, obviously Anthony Richardson has been hurt over the past couple weeks, and we talked about it earlier and in the preseasons. Like, yeah, in the preseasons, like, plays like Cam Newton looks like Cam Newton, but you're going to have the realities of Cam Newton. If you want to play like that, don't want to slide, you want to try to run everybody over. So he's been battling with those injuries. Joe Flacco randomly just comes in as the backup and just starts slinging that thing, whether it be on the Browns or whether it be on the Colts, making Josh Downs out here looking like Randy Moss and stuff. So they look like a formidable offense with him. And this is without Jonathan Taylor, who's been hurt with a high ankle sprain, so he's been out. So the Colts are sitting at 3-3 and, have a chance to maybe try to squeak in as a wild card. That's followed by the Tennessee Titans with Will Levis, who has looked abysmal. Will Levis finds ways to turn over the ball. Like, he's creative with it, bro. Like, I never thought about that one. I didn't think you could do that.
I don't know how, like I don't know how they still trot him out there and say, yeah, this guy, he's our starting quarterback. I mean, I guess it's different than Deshaun Watson, right? Because they're not stuck with the big ass contract.
He's on their rookie contract.
Yeah, they're not giving him $2.5 million a week. Like, they're not tied to him. They can do whatever else they want, and they should do whatever else they want, other than have him back there trying to do whatever it is that you might want to call quarterbacking, because it is certainly
I don't understand.
not that.
Like, I get it. Like, he's like the prototypical quarterback size, or even kind of like that Bo Nix type frame. He's athletic. He has a big arm. But I mean, that's it. I mean, like, cause I think it's in between the ears when it comes to the negativities. And I don't know if you can fix that at that point. And it's weird because, like, they're, I guess you could say they're older, but you have good receiving weapons. DeAndre Hopkins, I feel like, is still he's nowhere near elite like he was in his prime, but I think he's still a good receiver. Calvin Ridley, as proven by the Jaguars last year, is still a good receiver. I think last game Calvin Ridley had 9 targets with 0 receptions. So I mean,
I didn't know that was possible.
I don't know what the times. That's what I'm saying. Like, so yeah, that's that. And then you have the Jacksonville Jaguars, who have looked completely terrible. Like, they just fell off the rails. Like, last season they started, I think it was like 8-3, and then ended up losing like 5 out of their last 6 games and ended up getting kicked out of the playoffs when they were like originally like, I think 95% chance to make the playoffs when they're sitting at 8-3. And then since then, I think they're like literally like 2-9. And then to start this season, they're 1-5. So like, it's weird because it's like, I feel like they have good talent too. Like, I feel like Trevor Lawrence, I think he's overrated. Like, I don't think he should have got that contract, but I mean, you're kind of in that weird situation. It's like, okay, well, we have a average, or I guess you could say slightly above average quarterback. He's young, and we want to secure our future at quarterback, so you pay him. And then you have, Christian Kirk, even though Calvin really walked, you still have Evan Ingram, and then you draft I don't remember the junior.
Brian Thomas
Jr.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, you feel like you surround him with good weapons and good talent, but like, they have not been able to get anything clicking on offense. So not sure what the Jaguars are even going to do at that point either. So any thoughts on any of those couple teams?
Yeah, I mean, as far as the Jaguars go, I believe that they're, if I remember correctly, they just about every game except for maybe one, they've given up over 400 yards of offense. So, like, I'm not sure what the hell's going on with their defense. But clearly,
past 4 games, 47 to the Bills, 24 to the Texans, 34 to the Colts, who they somehow ended up beating in a shootout. And then they just gave up 35 points to the Bears in London with Caleb Williams, hey man, hey, don't count that rookie of the year out. Hey,
bro, stop it.
Hey, I'm just saying, 4-2. That's all I'm saying.
Whatever. Flugazy. Anyways, but yeah, I mean, with that, and then there's also the fact that I mean, you know me, I've never been a fan of ETN really, because he's not that efficient of a runner.
I liked him in college.
Yeah, that was the thing. That college is college. Like, Will Levis looked good in college too.
Tore his ACL in the preseason. So.
And so, you don't really, they didn't really have a running game. Maybe now they do with Tank Bigsby, but they also...
He's hurt now too.
Yeah, exactly. So they also, have Brian Thomas Jr. out there who looks great when they get him the ball, but the key is getting him the ball. And Trevor Lawrence will occasionally do that competently, but then he'll also occasionally give the other team the ball, which bodes not too well for an offense trying to make a comeback whenever they're down by 14 points because their defense can't stop a nosebleed. So I'm not. I don't know what to do with that team. Because their defense has some talent there on the D line, and they are getting healthier and healthier, sure. But at the same time, they're not right now, so that doesn't help them if they're going to get healthy and they already have all these losses. But this is basically, like you can chalk it up to a dead season for them right now because like at this point you're not going to be. I mean, maybe you run the table, but you're not going to be in the
Mhm.
running really um, for a wild card spot or for obviously not for the division either. So maybe Doug Peterson is the next one to go in terms of firing coaches and stuff. But I don't know, man. I don't know. It'll be
It's weird too
interesting to
because it's
see.
like Trevor Lawrence, I don't think is good, but like this season, he hasn't been bad. It's like he's about top 10 in yards. He's around top. He's 12th, but 12th in touchdowns, and he only has 3 interceptions on the seasons. But they like just haven't been able to capitalize. They haven't been able to capitalize in the red zone. And yeah, and all of these other things. Like you said, the defense isn't terrible and they have some talent. It's just they haven't been able to put anything together. So then you thought, with maybe the return of Evan Ingram and you have your full array of weapons and options for them. Yeah, they're getting a lot of targets and receptions, but it's not turning into any points. And then you have Caleb Williams out here carving you up and stuff too. So like like you said, I don't know where you go from there. Doug Peterson probably is going to be on the chopping block, and you're kind of like you said like one of the worst things you could be in the league is like average or mediocre. They're worse than that, but they're in like an average mediocre mentality because it's like you're not going to draft a new quarterback. You just
Mm,
spent all this money on Trevor Lawrence. I mean, you just spent this high draft pick on Brian Thompson Jr. And like, I mean, what are you going to do? Because like you have ETN. I mean, so like I don't know. Maybe just bode more well in the defense. But yeah, I don't even know what you do with that for the Jacksonville. So
yeah.
move. Yeah. So moving on to the AFC West, as we mentioned, the Kansas City Chiefs are sitting at 5-0, doing this without Rashee Rice, doing this without Isaiah Pacheco. Who needs them? Insert Juju, insert Kareem Hunt, and
Hmm.
you don't miss a step. So, I mean, they are who they are going to have a key matchup with the Super Bowl rematch against the 49ers this weekend. So that's going to be a big marquee game that I think we're going to touch on a little bit more towards the end of the show. And then coming up in second place, you have the Chargers, who have looked good in spots. You have Harbaugh, obviously, with the new mentality of like using Justin Herbert a lot less and running the ball with J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards. Gus Edwards obviously has been hurt now. It's on IR, so it's the J.K. Dobbins show. But I mean, Trevor's kind of battled through injuries this season as well. So I mean, I don't know if you have any different outlook on the Chargers. I think they're a good team. I think they can like have like a week where they surprise and upset an elite team, but they could also have one of those games where they kind of let down and lose to a team that they shouldn't. So I don't really know how to feel about the Chargers. I think they'll be a wild card team at best, but I don't know if you have any different opinion on that.
I mean, the Chargers are an interesting team because a lot of people were high on them because of Harbaugh and everything like that too. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but the thing that was kind of um, holding folks back was okay, like they want to run the ball, which is great,
Mm-hmm.
but who the hell are going to give the ball to? And then all of a sudden emerges
J.K. turns into
J.K.
Barry
Dobbins.
Sanders.
Yeah, like reincarnation over here. Um,
Mm-hmm.
And the other part of it too was that like their offensive line wasn't projected to be particularly all that great, and they're still middle of the pack in terms of O line, like run blocking and pass blocking in general. But that's because they've had a lot of injuries, and they have a lot of guys coming back. I believe it's Joe Alt, who was one of their like top 10 draft picks there. Um, so he came back last week, so that'll be a major help for them going forward. And then they're also getting a couple guys back this week too. So with that being said, like they very well could be in the mix. I don't want to say that they can knock off Kansas City, but they're
Mm-hmm.
always competitive with them. It's like the Seahawks against the 49ers, or the Cardinals against the 49ers, or anybody in the AFC or NFC West there. Like the games are always
Mm-hmm.
competitive. At least one of them is. And I mean not both of them, but at least one of them is, god
Yeah.
damn it. Um And with the Chargers and stuff too, their upcoming schedule looks pretty nice. It's shaping out to be pretty decent with Arizona, with
True.
this week New Orleans, Cleveland, Tennessee, Cincinnati, who you know they have a solid team, but apparently the Chargers also have a solid defense now too, like they're top five. Um, and then you go Baltimore, then you go Atlanta, Kansas City, and it gets a little tough there. But then it lightens up at the back half. Tampa Bay, Detroit, and New England finish up with Las Vegas. So it's a very doable schedule for them. But do I think that they're gonna take home the bacon? No, I still like Kansas City, obviously, regardless of who they put out there. The system just works. I'm not calling Mahomes a system quarterback or anything, but also this year he also is averaging 5.2 air yards per game, which is the lowest in the league. I'm not saying anything, but I'm saying that he might be Charlie check down right now. So I digress.
Thanks. So sitting in third at 3-3, you have the Broncos, who, I mean, based off of how they started the season, I guess is surprising because obviously they start 0-2, losing to the Seahawks and Broncos, and then they have like one of the upsets of the year so far, beating the Buccaneers, like mollywopping the Buccaneers 26-7. And then they have the close win against the Jets. Then they beat the Raiders and they lose to the Chargers. So I think they're going to be one of those teams that are kind of, I don't know. I think they're going to be probably finishing like around 7-10. That's Broncos. Bo Nix has showed flashes, but he's also showed some really ugly throws and poor decisions at times. So don't know if you have any changes or any expectations for the Broncos. I mean, they don't really have Cortland Sutton and Javonte Williams. I mean, I don't think they have the greatest weapons. So,
yeah, they are who they thought they were. They ain't good.
Yep.
So, and I mean, they might win tomorrow, just because like
injuries.
Nobody is playing on, like they're playing against a high school team. So, and it's Sean Payton's return, to New Orleans. So
do this for me. Yeah. Might see a bounty gate come out. I'm just saying. No, I'm just saying. I don't like Sean Payton. Anyway, you got the Raiders, and we talked about, obviously, traded Devante Adams. They've been without him the past couple of weeks as he's been battling through his quote-unquote hamstring injury while he was preparing to buddy back up with Aaron Rodgers. So, they transitioned away from Gardner Minshew, and they brought in who is their quarterback
Aiden
now?
O'Connell.
I can't remember his name. Aiden O'Connell. So Aiden O'Connell ended up starting a few games for them last season towards the end after Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt, and now he's starting for them. So I feel like the only bright spot that has been for the Raiders is the fact that Brock Bowers has probably been one of the better tight ends in the league. Other than that, hasn't looked very pretty. Their Super Bowl is probably beating the Ravens in that comeback. But I mean, yeah, I don't know where you really go for the Raiders. They're probably going to go to the draft when it comes to a quarterback for this season. Other than that, I feel like they're probably just going to clean shop and then probably tank. I ain't gonna lie to you.
Yeah, I mean, that's really all you can do. And at least now, like subtle victories, take the wins where you can get them, right? And so they have Tom Brady as a partial owner now. So maybe that can draw
like his requirements and restrictions. No, he's not allowed to watch practices. He's not allowed to be super involved when it comes to game plan and game script. He's not allowed to be in certain places. He's not allowed to talk about certain things. They put some requirements on this man. They're like, hey, Tom, why don't you get back there and throw the pigskin around a little bit, just put on O'Connell's jersey and they'll never know.
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if that man comes out of retirement, But I mean, the Dolphins. Imagine the Dolphins with Tom Brady right now. That wouldn't be that
imagine
bad.
The Dolphins with Joe Flacco right now, bro.
Right? I mean, shit, and they Super Bowl
just flinging that thing to Tyreek. God damn it! So that is the AFC. Was there any other teams that you wanted to, or any other thing that you wanted to cover about the AFC before we transition to the NFC?
No, that's pretty much it.
Super Bowl pick.
Say what?
Any changes to your Super Bowl pick? I got the Chiefs still. So no
changes. I'm holding strong. Eagles.
Fair enough.